It's okay.
I don't know, John wants to.
Okay.
Oh, I can't see I can't see this board.
Okay. We'll call the meeting to order. First of all, I'd like to say, as always, to remind everybody that we are a board of volunteers, and our job is to manage the public hearing and ensure the applications that come before us adhere to the town land ordinance. And we have some leeway to interpret that ordinance where it provides some discretion and latitude, but we try to always act in the best interest of all residents. We have a clear process that we follow, and we are helped greatly in our efforts by Jamie Francomano from the office, who is the head of community development and planning. We're also Deborah, thank you, does an outstanding job for us on producing the minutes, and appreciate everybody on the board making an effort to give headlines in their comments followed by background. It makes it much easier for her to record what we're saying. Thank you.
The minutes should show that, by the way. The minutes should show that.
Yes. And then also this evening we are experimenting. We produce a lot of paper on this board, and we're experimenting with going digital. So we have the screen here this evening. We may not get it right first time. It may take us some time to get used to doing it, but I think it's a worthwhile experiment. We're also helped tonight by Brian Goding on technology in the corner. This meeting is being aired on, what is it, channel 2?
22.
Channel 22. And Brian is new this evening, helping us. So, having said that, first up is Hiwa Soy Beanery, doing business as Tofudio, but he's not here, right?
Heiwa Tofu is not here. He said he would be here, so
So moving right on,
think we ought to
second up
move
is
on.
development review from Kangas Farm subdivision. And the new owner, David Dickey, has asked for a pre-application review by Will Gartley from Gartley and Dorski. And it's the old farm property of approximately 106 acres, which is located on Route 17 between Rocky Pond and Macy's Pond, which is map 12, lot 190. It has multiple existing homes, which the applicant proposes to separate with new lot boundaries along with other lot changes. So I would remind everybody, this is a pre-application. Will is just going to tell us what they want to do. Our job is to be helpful and understand what they want to do, and let him know if we have any contingencies or issues that we'd like to have taken into account when they come back with the full application. Is that right, Jamie?
yes, a pre-application is a great opportunity to for the engineer to get a scope of his work.
Okay. So, Will.
All right, good evening. Will Gartley with Gartley and Dorski, and as John said, I'm here tonight representing David Dickey, who has a purchase and sale agreement on a 105-acre parcel in Rockport between Macy's and Rocky Pond. And David proposes to purchase this and hold on to the majority of it. What he would like to do is, there's two existing dwellings on the property. There's the
Those are those two
Yep.
outlined there.
Kangas Farm, and there's another small house, which is now off the screen, which we have as labeled Lot 2.
Right.
And so he's just proposing to create lots around those two houses and put those on the market and hold on and retain the rest of the property.
Okay.
So as this is in the 908 district, which is the rural district, and that requires that 50% of the subdivided lots that are going to be for sale or lease, that we also take 50% of that total land and put it under deed restrictions so that it's undeveloped. And that's the parcel that we're showing, which is to the kind of southeast of Lot 1. That works out to be 3.9 acres that he will put restrictive covenants and record them in the registry
That
they-
it can't be developed.
that it can't be developed. Those two houses have been there for a long time. They have existing septic, existing well, existing driveways. There's no planned development as part of this subdivision. It's really just to be able to sell those as two separate single-family residential dwellings. And, you know, we've included the things that the pre-app request, the application, a location map, a soils map, and we also went and just double-checked soils to make sure that there was suitable soils for a replacement septic system. If for some reason anything happened to the ones that were there, there's not records on at least one of them, so I wanted to make sure that, you know, for David's sake, the buyer's sake, and planning board, that you knew that there were suitable soils for another septic system if for some reason something happened to the ones that are there.
And there is.
And there is. Yep.
Okay.
In fact, I've shown
Oh, I
them.
see that subsurface
Yep, I've shown them as test
disposal
pits,
system,
right.
yeah.
Yep.
Anything else, Will?
It's pretty straightforward. I'd certainly answer any questions. And then before I go, I was hoping to just quickly go through the requirements for final plan. Since this
Okay.
is a minor subdivision, it goes right from pre-app to final.
Right.
And there's just a few things in there that I want to make sure, I think are pretty clear, that I don't need to deal with because these sites are already developed, but I just want to make sure that we're on the same page.
We're talking about section 800.
It would be Article 6, minor
Article 6.
subdivision.
Okay, let's get our subdivision books
Exactly.
out, and so that we're all looking at the same thing.
Under 6.3, submission requirements. I just wanted to, there's a couple of them that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay. Article 6. Article 6. Minor subdivision, Article 6. And we're looking at 6.3 boundary survey.
6.3 is submission requirements, right?
Yeah.
The final plan application shall consist of
Oh,
the
the
following items.
application requirements?
Yes,
Yeah,
application
okay.
requirements. So most of them are relatively straightforward, and we're planning to provide those. With regards to D3, which was the boundary survey, we're going to give a boundary survey and set monuments at the corners of the new lots, but we weren't planning to do a boundary survey of the entire 105 acres. It just doesn't seem to be necessary and worth, because we're not coming anywhere near any of the perimeter boundary lines.
Right,
So I wanted to make sure that that was okay with the board.
okay. And let's hear what they all are, and then
Mhm.
we'll respond to them.
The next one I wanted to be sure of was, since these wells are existing under number 7, on, was it page 6-4, D7, it talks about proof that there's adequate water supply, and these, they,
Number 7,
Yeah.
indication of water supply, on
So-
page 6-4.
right, these are private wells that have been used for a long time, and there's no history of a problem there. I'm just wondering what the board, if anything, would want.
Well, I think if the wells are
Hold on,
already
let's
existing.
let's hear everything first.
Okay,
before
so
we-
that was the
Oh,
other.
that's right, we're going through a
Yeah,
list, excuse
yeah.
me.
The next two, B and C, B, C, and D, are all talking about water supply for the fire.
So when water supply by private wells, etc., and the
Well-
rural location.
Right, so B is a written statement from the fire chief approving the number, size, and location of the proposed hydrants and their supply mains. Doesn't seem to be applicable. When water is to be supplied by private wells, evidence of adequate groundwater supply, again, they're there and they've been functioning for a long time.
So you're saying that Article 7D
Yeah.
doesn't apply because,
C,
C,
C.
C rather, doesn't apply because there's
Because-
adequate.
yeah, I mean, this is a little bit of a strange, we're not proposing anything. The houses are there, the wells are there,
Right.
everything's there and functioning, so.
Right. So there's no, got it, okay.
And then again for D, for rural locations, the fire chief provide a statement. I'm just wondering if we need to get anything from the fire chief. Again, these houses are there, we're not adding any new structures.
Right.
Isn't it more when we're creating something new and increasing density and doing, I mean,
Well, let's see.
isn't that how that section
Well,
applies or not?
we'll see. When we hear what they all are, we'll come back to that.
The next one was contour lines, and what I was,
That's that, which number you?
that's
look-
number
oh,
13.
Yeah,
What I was hoping there is that we're going to locate all the wetlands because that's a statute, we have to.
right.
And so, we'll actually locate the driveways, all the structures. So on the final plan, everything that's there is shown accurately. With regards to topo, I was hoping to just use LiDAR data. We can
Just
still
use what?
LiDAR data. It's the available topo that is from aerial photography, rather than actually going out there and taking the time to shoot it.
So there's existing data exists, so
Mhm.
we should really use that rather than go and produce more.
Right. If we were designing a road or actually proposing something,
Mm-hmm.
we would do it by actual field survey.
Right,
But in this case, again, we're not proposing to make any changes whatsoever to these parcels. So
right,
I would like to just use the available data,
okay,
just so that on the plan, you've got some topo that shows you what's going on there.
right.
Otherwise, I think that, let's see here. Oh, on number 21,
That's on page 6-6,
yep,
requiring hydrological assessment, yeah.
yep. It doesn't, again, seem appropriate since we're not proposing to do anything. Same thing with number 22, vehicular traffic. Those two houses have been there for a long time. And then again, on number 24, stormwater management plan. We're not making any changes. We're not building any roads. Same thing with 25, erosion control and sedimentation control plan. We're not doing any earthwork, so
It's not really.
doesn't seem like it's applicable. And same thing with number 27, a phosphorus control plan. Again, doesn't, I wouldn't think that that's applicable because we're not doing anything.
All right.
This
Anything
is-
else, Phil? That's
Nope,
it?
that's the list.
Okay, good. Yeah, Jamie.
So the all of these issues of what's practical to submit for a final plan, Will and I talked about on the phone exact same ideas about how to scope the project and how different things would be if the entire 105 acres were proposed to be developed. And the only threshold issue that I would encourage the board to go through is back in the land use ordinance. Why the
Refer
land
us to a page, if you would,
908.2.
in our land use ordinance.
Correct.
Okay, Yeah.
908.2.1. The 908 rural zoning district, 5 years ago, 10, Will know better than I.
Hold on, give us a second. Let us get there. Hold on. 908.2, special district standards.
Yeah.
Okay, separate districts, separate standards established in a rural zone for single-family homes, etc.
Not there yet.
908.2 and then
Hold
point
on,
one.
hold on, let everybody get there, yeah.
It's a table.
It's
I got it.
page 9-2, Tony.
I got it.
Correct.
I have it.
Got it? Everybody on board? Okay.
So the 908 zoning district has a very large 3-acre minimum lot size,
Uh-huh.
unless you go through this process that Will's described about reserving land within the subdivision, 50% of it. And so frequently we get people who come in and didn't know this had happened because it's recent enough, and they can't believe that their house is sitting on a legally non-conforming lot because of this zoning amendment. But of course, there must have been some other proponents of it, and a lot of deliberation going into making this rural district stay rural.
Right.
So that's where Will has derived the 50% number and the reason for setting aside the 3.9 acres. The question that I posed to you, Will, on the phone and want the planning board to feel comfortable with is, what about the remainder lands in this 105 acre parcel? That's not considered part of the subdivision in this interpretation. So it's not lot 4, it's not the remainder in a subdivision. We're not asking Will for 52 acres set aside, which would be half of that.
Right.
So that land technically is not proposed to be subdivided. The subdivision is in these two chunks. One lot is the small one on the left, and the other lot is the other two lots are on the right, including the reserved land. So there's no better time than now to make sure the planning board is comfortable with that interpretation.
So just to paraphrase my understanding of it then, that what we're talking about is 6.9 acres in total, as it says there, right?
No,
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 that's one
one
of the
lot is
parcels.
6.9,
And then lot two,
Yeah.
3 lots.
So 3 lots, oh, I see. So there's 6, 9,
So 7.8.
was it 11, 12?
There's 7.8 acres that are being offered for sale or lease.
Yeah.
So that's the key, is what's being offered for sale or lease, which is the 2 lots, 1 and
Right.
2, for a total of 7.8 acres.
All right.
And what this says is that you have to set aside 50% of whatever's being subdivided into undeveloped land. And then the definition of undeveloped land is on the next page, 908.2.3.
All right.
And it gives you a bunch of options of how the ownership of that is held and what the deed restrictions have to be.
Right.
So we're
So we've-
taking 50% of that 7.8
Yeah.
and deed restricting 3.9 acres.
So on this question, we're being asked to record that the rest of, how many acres is it in total?
Well, it's approximately 105 acres total.
Okay, so the rest of
So
the
it's gonna be 90 some odd acres
90
are gonna be remaining.
is being held and will not be developed.
Right.
And
But it's
that's-
not part of the subdivision.
And it's not part of the
Right.
subdivision.
If he ever decides to do anything, create another lot out of
Then he's
that,
gotta come
or,
back.
then he's gotta come back.
Okay.
And at that point, he'd have to set more land aside, or he could wait 5 years and create 1 3-acre lot, which
Right.
wouldn't be a subdivision.
Right, and yeah. Let me just check before you do. Have we got the
Absolutely.
issue that
Yep.
you're drawing our attention
Yeah,
to?
it's a convenient way to deal with a very large parcel, a new owner who doesn't have the same reason for owning the old farm as the family did that sold it. And so we don't want to put that person to the burden of figuring out everything that you ordinarily would about site performance and stormwater and future development potential, because it's not on his agenda yet.
Got it.
And if you're comfortable putting that to a future time, the fastest and smartest way to do it is what Will's proposed. Don't consider it part of the subdivision.
Okay, got it. Terry and then Tom. Yeah.
I just have a question, make sure I'm understanding. So this 3rd lot, the proposed undeveloped land of 3.9 acres, is being made part of the 3-lot subdivision in order to fulfill the requirement of a 50% undeveloped?
It's not a lot, it's just land that is being deed restricted in order to
In
meet
order
the
to
50%. Right,
This particular requirement that we're
Exactly.
looking at of the
Yep.
50, the 72,
Yep.
5, okay, I
Yep.
got it.
now that same table, that 908.2.1,
On which page?
that's on page 9-2.
Okay, yeah.
Where it allows us to be less than 3 acres or 130,000 square feet, which is just shy of 3 acres, allows the minimum lot size to be 20,000 square feet as long as you meet the overall
Long
density
as you have
requirement.
seven.
But we weren't looking to do that. Well, we actually went out there and looked at, all right, what are each of these properties using? Based on the buildings that are there and the size and the scale, what's gonna make these feel the way they should? And so that they can historically be used the way they have been. And so we made sure we encompassed all of the land that had been historically used around each of those buildings. We could have made those lots a lot smaller, but I think that the value is gonna be kept
By making them.
by making them the size that we have.
Tom?
Question on the 50% set aside. Am I misunderstanding how the 50% works? If you were to subdivide the entire 100 acres, you would set aside 50%, so that would be 50 and change, right?
Correct.
So if you're making a subdivision that has those two pieces, which total 7.8, wouldn't 50% be,
3.9.
no, it would be not 50%, it would be twice as big as those 2 lots. Because to be 50%, it would have to be, so you have 7.8, so that would be 15.6.
be
And
200.
50% of that would be the equivalent of the two lots, and the other 50% is the set-aside.
I would think that would be 200%.
That's not 200% set-aside.
I'm not sure, I don't quite get
Well-
it, Tom. The lots,
If you were subdividing the whole piece of property,
which is not,
no, but if you were, that would be
I understand.
100 acres, right? And 50% of that is like 50 acres.
50 acres, yeah.
So say you were subdividing 10 acres, 50% would be 5 acres.
Right.
So if you are subdividing 15,
Which is what they have here, which is how many?
but the
how many
thing
we
is
have here?
that 3.9 plus 6.9 plus 0.9,
So how many
No,
is
the
it?
three, the 3.9 is,
I understand.
The 3.9,
you're doing the 50% of the wrong number.
so you're saying it should be,
Double the total acreage of the two lots. So the 50% is,
half the total acreage of the two
right,
lots.
exactly.
Which is 3.
And the
You
two
take
lots-
half of the whole. You're not half of,
And the two lots
Right.
amount to how much?
Not half of
The
the
two
two
lots are
lots
7.8.
together and then you.
So, and the set aside is,
So it
It's
should be half of
3.9.
11.7 acres.
no.
Or half.
You take the proposed lot, 6.9, you take the proposed lot, 0.9,
Okay.
and that's 7.8.
Right.
Double that, so that's 15.6. So 50% of 15.6 is the two
Now I'm
lots.
not, now I'm not.
why would you double that?
I don't get it.
Do you,
I don't,
okay,
Let's just
am I
go-
not explaining it well, or do you people not grasp
No,
math?
we're
don't
dense.
understand.
No, we're dense.
Okay, but see what I did? You're not getting the equivalency. 100 acres, 50% of that is,
50 acres.
50 acres.
that's 50%, right?
But we're not,
Yeah,
yeah?
But that would be like saying, okay, I'm going to take 25 acres and subdivide that.
in which case you'd have to set 12 and a half.
No, you're doing the math backwards. You're taking 50% of the wrong thing. You have 25, so you would have 50% would be, of 25 would be 12 and a half.
Yeah.
And so you'd make 50% set aside, the 12 and a half, and then two lots out of the other 12 and a half. So you would have,
I think I do.
you're doing the 50% from the wrong
Could I
thing.
stand up and, or have you stand up and point to something? Because I think it helps visually to
Now,
point.
hold on a second, hold on.
to that.
Let's just go
I
over it.
understand what he's
Let's
saying.
let's just go over it one more time. The total,
Everybody is agreeing that 50% of 100 is 50.
well, hold on a second.
Right.
Hold on, hold on, let me just see if I can get it. So the lots that are being developed, the total acreage, including the houses that are there that we're talking about, Will, is how much?
11.7.
What's the total that we're
total
talking?
is-
11.7.
No,
Eleven-
lot 1 is 6.9,
Yeah.
lot
6.9.
2 is 0.9, that's 7.8.
0.9, so that's 7.8.
Right,
Yep.
but the total amount that you are subdividing out of the original is, as you've represented
It's
there,
still 7.8.
is 11.7.
We're not subdividing that, we're just setting that aside.
But that
It's
is.
not a lot,
that's
it's
the
still
fif-
gonna be
But
owned
hang
by
on,
David.
hang on.
Yep,
But it is part of the subdivision.
I see what you're
Okay,
saying,
the
yeah.
entire amount that you are dividing out currently as represented there, regardless of how it's chopped up, is 11.7 acres, which is, I think, what Tom's getting at.
It should be just
There-
under
50% of the
Therefore,
11.7.
50% of that
Right, but not 15
11.7
acres.
should be
Is-
set aside, which would require a somewhat larger parcel than the 3.9 you've given. Now,
So
But
Tom's
Will's not
point
calling
is-
that a parcel at all.
No, but it's
no,
part
but
of the
it's part of the
subdivision.
subdivision.
It's an
Okay.
And it's
interesting-
gotta be,
for the
it's gotta,
set-aside.
hang on, no, let us finish our sentences,
Excuse
please.
me, one at a time.
So it has to be 50% of the existing acreage that is being made part of the subdivision. I think Tom's right.
Hold on a second.
You're carving,
Hold on. Jamie, what were you saying?
you asked me to explain it, but you won't give me the opportunity to explain it.
Well, I think we're getting you there. What were you saying?
I think we'll need to pay careful attention to what Tom is saying, but perhaps as you do that, look at the sentence in the table that, for better or worse, hangs everything on in parentheses. 50%
Draw our eyes to it, Jamie.
50%
Which-
of
Which line,
land,
which line are we talking about now, Jamie?
In the table, 9.2.
minimum area per dwelling unit.
Yep.
Right here.
Under that is a new one. It's undeveloped land
Yeah.
in a residential subdivision.
Right.
How much undeveloped land in the subdivision must you have? 50% of land. And so you guys are talking about 50% of which land?
Right.
50% of the total.
Whatever size the
50% of the
subdivision
whole.
is, let's say it was 12 acres. Let's just round it off and keep it simple. Let's say that those 3 delineated boundaries, I know 2 are developed lots with actual, and the rest of it is set aside. Let's say it was 12 acres.
Roughly 12 or else roughly 8?
I'm just trying to use a
No,
round,
she's
no.
saying 12 for the sake of, so you can divide it
It's
in half.
actually 11.7, but so that we can follow the math more easily, I'm suggesting we talk in terms of 12. If all of that was being carved out of the original 105 was 12 acres, and you wanted to create 2 parcels of whatever size from that, that's fine. But the remainder must be 6 acres. The remainder that is undeveloped must be a dimension that would
Okay.
satisfy 6 acres. And you've got room there to make that set-aside parcel larger.
So what you're saying is if we're subdividing if the 2 lots add up to 7.8, then the undeveloped needs to be 7.8 also.
Is that your point?
That's
Tom?
50% of the whole, correct.
Yeah,
That's your point.
Yes.
and I agree with
Okay.
Tom. I think
Because
that's
everybody
true.
agreed that 50% of 100 is 50.
Okay, all right.
But you're taking 50% of the wrong whole.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think that undeveloped piece
So
has to be
Tom,
larger.
larger.
We could find a way to
hold
do
on,
that.
Terry, please. So Tom, you're saying,
I'm saying that you have to take 50% of the whole. So you take the total acreage, like Terry said, of the 3 pieces of land
the
that are being,
undeveloped and the 2 existing developed,
what's being carved out,
and they total,
and they total 11.7. So 50% of that is the number that you're looking for.
set aside.
So if you propose 2 lots that are 7.8, you have to start off with 15.6 to carve out the 7.8.
I understand what he's saying.
I think he's
Yeah.
right.
okay?
So
is
maybe
that-
you guys can tweak your.
And that's tweakable, doable?
What's that?
Is that tweakable, doable, or are we being asked to waive that requirement? And if we are, is it allowable?
No, I don't think it is allowable.
No.
I think if that's the interpretation, then we need to either shrink the lots a little or put more land to be restricted or a little of both.
Okay, all right.
So,
So we're calling that proposed undeveloped land, if not part of the subdivision, somehow encumbered by the proposed subdivision approval, and therefore part of the land that needs to be 50%
Yes.
undeveloped.
The total. The developed and the undeveloped combined, the set aside has to be 50% of whatever that total is.
And that's right.
Yes.
And a totally other different conversation is, the applicant is figuring out which acreage he would like to
Right.
set aside for this purpose.
Right.
The
Okay.
planning board is not stepping in
Mr.
to design a subdivision.
No, we're not. Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I
Yep,
ask?
Tony.
Well, that little strip to the right of the undeveloped land, is that being kept for potential easement right away or something?
Not
So you could slide to
Yeah,
the
we
right
can-
a little bit to the dark blue line.
yeah.
So that we're not blocking the issue, we're just redrawing the lines a little bit.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to take more of the overall 100 and some odd acres and set that aside.
3.9 acres,
Well, if the numbers stay the way they are.
if the numbers stay the way they are, but
Unless you shrink the 2
Right.
existing. Okay.
But I'm sorry to make it, because it seems like we've sort of
when you
put this
add
to
to
bed,
that,
but can I raise one more question?
keep
I'm not
changing
sure
to
we're there
50%.
yet. And Tom, you've done more subdivision
I
stuff than
think
I have.
you'll
and
want to
so
be
have you.
comfortable
Go
with
to
it
your point.
later on,
At the
so.
bottom of there is this actual formula. Like, we're just talking in terms of 50%, but if you look in the box at the bottom of 9-2, I just want to make sure we're doing this right, we're not creating unnecessary problems. it gives you these 3 steps. It says,
That's what I thought. Half the area to be subdivided.
Let me just read it out. To
Okay,
calculate the
it's
number
a-
of dwelling units permitted, 1, determine the number of square feet in the portion of the parcel to be subdivided. And
Okay.
2, divide half to be subdivided by the minimum lot area per dwelling. And 3, round the result to the nearest whole number.
yes. So I'm asking maybe, even though we're right in discussing it as a topic, maybe this 50% formula is not as simple and as broad-brushed as we have
No,
said it is. In other words, that there's an actual mathematical formula. So if you've got, again, let's just say 12 acres. It says, take half of that area to be subdivided. No, it says divide 12 acres, so hold it, divide half the area to be subdivided, does that not mean 6 acres? By the minimum
Lot area per dwelling.
lot area per dwelling unit, which is 72,500.
Right, and that gives you how many lots?
Round the result, does that,
All that's doing
would that,
is-
in the case of
That's telling
12
you how many
acres,
lots
give
you can put in that
6?
area.
No, that's just telling you how many lots you can
Dwelling-
have,
Dwelling units you could have.
Dwelling
right?
Right.
Which in this case, it would be 9. And we're only
Okay,
asking for
so
2.
it is as
so-
simple as they said, that just half of it
Yeah,
has to
right,
be
yeah,
undeveloped.
right.
And this other little formula only has to do if you're creating
Yep.
a multiple lot subdivision.
You-
Okay,
you
thank
got-
you, sorry, I just want to make sure
Tony,
we weren't
I have to have a little more
in the
understanding.
weeds.
Because if you take the 2 lots that are being subdivided, the set-aside lot isn't being subdivided.
Right,
So if you take the total package, the 3.9, the 6.9, and the, whatever the other.
0.9.
0.9, and add them up. And then you say, okay, well, we've got to have half of that, so you add to that. Now you've got a bigger piece now.
Right.
So now there's a never-ending formula.
I know.
And
I
so
was
you-
thinking
No.
the same way, but I
Oh.
think,
Yeah,
I know what you're, but I think what we need to do is look at this first by saying, all right, we're gonna start with, I mean, in this case, if we want those to be 6.9 and 0.9, that's 7.8, then I need to double that.
Right.
And say, that's my area that I'm subdividing, and half of it is gonna be deed restricted. That's gonna be the easiest way to
Yep.
look at this.
You just start with
and the less
15.6.
complicated. So I'm gonna start with 15.6 acres out of the 105, and that's the subdivision.
Okay.
just so we don't end up with a,
And you'll,
No, no,
and
it
you'll
doesn't
find
work
a way
like
to
that.
do that,
Yeah,
yeah.
You figure out what you want the whole to be.
right, I
and
can
then-
see, right, I can
You'll
change
find
the
the dirt.
whole, I can tweak the line, I mean, this was all somewhat arbitrary anyway, we're trying to make it make sense, but the set aside, we
Good.
didn't spend that much time thinking about it, because
Let's-
there was land there that David was fine putting restrictions on, and so we just drew a line, so
Okay.
this is gonna be easy to fix, I'm good with it, I get it, we'll move on.
Let's
Okay.
move on.
Sorry.
No,
Absolutely
fine.
No, that's good, Tom, that's
And,
why.
and
Well,
some
it's
of
good
the,
catch.
there's a reason why my kids are all math
That's
majors.
Good catch.
Let's keep moving.
All right.
And was there anything else before we go to your list?
Nope.
Warren, you had something?
I had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Well, just looking back again at 6.6, 6.7 in the subdivision ordinances, because of proximity to water, and you did allude to wetlands, I was just curious, is this area, I don't know it well, is it flood prone?
oh, it's not in the floodplain, no,
Okay.
no.
And are there wetlands issues?
There's wetlands on the parcel, but there's no issues because we're not doing anything.
Okay.
I mean, we're not proposing to fill any, we're not proposing to impact any.
if we do accept it because it's already in existence, but some of the stuff was not correct or non-conforming, are we just giving a blessing to something that would have been changed if we were looking at the whole subdivision? In other words, are we grandfathering something that is maybe non-compliant? That's my only question.
I think you'll find when you see these wetlands on a drawing that it's pretty much irrelevant. Take a close look. You see very exciting topographically this site, that drops 50 feet from front to back, and there's unlikely to be any place where water gathers
look at the,
Now.
you're looking at the contours.
Yes.
Contour map, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the contours say there's no hollows there, right? There,
And it already exists, and there's no new
And so
roads
if
going
Will
in
was
or-
going to, yeah, well, that's Tony's point.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
so what? You're not introducing
If
new
there's any
impervious
wetlands, they're
area.
down by the pond.
Yeah.
All the
There-
two
You'll be
parcels meet minimum
surprised.
lot
There's
size and
wetlands around,
frontage.
around those properties, and there's wetlands on each of those lots. So there definitely is. Trying to go back and figure out when they were filled and when the state's laws went into effect, I think would be difficult. Both of those houses have been there for a long
I'm
time.
not trying to create trouble, I'm
Yeah.
just asking the question.
Yeah, good enough. All right, let's, I want to move on. Will raised a whole bunch of items. Is it, do the board think that we can take all of those as one, or do you want to go through each one? And the reason for me asking is I think the request made seems reasonable, and I see no reason to resist it, but that's just
I think it
me.
seems reasonable because we're just talking about putting lines on something that's already existing.
Yeah, I agree.
So then, can we make a motion then to agree that, vote on it? Would somebody care to take a stab at it? I can try, I think I have notes, but Deborah may be able to.
Well,
play
no,
back
she
what-
doesn't make the motion.
No, I know, but she may be able to play back what she's recorded.
I suggest that you.
I could
Try.
I could just read off to you
Request.
I could just go through them real quick again. If
Okay.
Just
you
the
know,
numbers of the
Yeah,
items.
just the numbers, so that Deborah's got it. If you make it that request, then we'll make a motion to
description.
accept the request as stated and just recorded in the minutes.
All right, so
Okay.
it's under Article 6.
Existing wells.
It's 6.3 submissions. D, application requirements. And then it is number 7,
Right.
which is the wells.
Existing wells.
Well, it's 7A, B, C, and D.
Okay, yep.
It is to allow LiDAR contours,
Yep,
number 13.
that's using the existing,
Yep, existing aerial, it's LIDAR.
Oh, I know that.
Just
John,
13.
excuse me, do you want just the numbers, or do you want his?
just what he's saying, the numbers. And where he's saying using the existing data, just record that as well, so that we
The
know.
LiDAR is on 13.
Yeah, yeah,
21,
yeah,
22,
yeah,
24,
yeah,
25,
yeah.
and 27.
Okay. So I would like a motion then.
I make a motion that we accept the application per the request of the applicant.
Is there a second? Yep, seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I might have put that
No,
you're
We're not accepting,
you're agreeing to
Pre-app.
waive
But when he brings it
those
back to us,
otherwise
the-
required
I can't hear
submissions.
if
So
two
don't we
people are
call
talking.
those
I
waivers?
cannot hear if two people are talking, right.
Waive the submission requirements
waivers,
as
exactly.
requested.
Right.
Something like that would be
The
great.
word waive has to be in
Okay,
there,
so
Okay.
because we're not accepting.
And that's why you're voting. A waiver is a
So do
significant
you want to
step.
say for the final application, we will waive, because this is pre-app.
Yes,
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah. Just so that it's recorded, we know, yeah, and it saves, that's going to save him having to go through all that work unnecessarily, just because we don't.
Just so he can draw some lines on paper.
Motion worded that way,
Yes.
Yes,
For the final.
Yeah.
Just waive the requirements per the applicant request.
Okay, thank you.
And that was seconded by the chair. And is there any further discussion amongst the board? Is any, I'm assuming there's no public comment, there may be? Okay. So, all in favour? Okay, unanimous. Okay,
All right, great,
All
thank
right.
you very much.
okay, thanks, Phil. Okay, next up, and so we'll see you, you'll come back with the full package, right?
Yep.
And we won't have to have that discussion again.
Nope, I'll make it very clear.
Okay, good. All right, next, where's my agenda? I've lost it.
I know where mine is.
Oh, here it is, I got it. All right, it's fine. Okay, okay, I got it.
It's Tofudio, yes?
Ta-da! Okay, all right. Well, there was, this is the soybean, right? Okay, all right.
Whenever I hear that name, I think of Phil Collins singing it.
We'll go next, fair enough, because we have somebody
Mr. Chairman, by way of introduction, since the planning board has not heard a request of this kind before, the applicants here, as far as I can tell, as a favor to the board, you approved the project last meeting
Right.
with conditions.
Right.
And as a sort of experiment, asked staff to produce findings of fact in a format that might be useful for anyone looking into the project in the future, or for a future planning board requested to amend this site plan. And so what you have is a new version of the checklist that you've seen before. Every line, except where there's some yellow highlighting for stuff that's ongoing, is the same as before. I've changed the yes thing to an S, and the no thing is still an N. Basically, you should be familiar with all this information, and I don't propose that you go through it line by line. But on the other hand, it's a solemn act. You know, I'm suggesting that the planning board adopt these findings of fact and conditions of approval. And then there's a drawing, which is updated. The applicant has provided a nice and neat signature block at my request, since I forgot to suggest that to him a month ago.
Yeah, I'm listening, yeah.
And the gold star, the white glove treatment, would be to have the conditions of approval also appear on the plan, which we could write in, but it's not, you know, this is just an example of a big leap in progress for our process, and who cares where we stop, you know. For now, we have a final drawing that is in suitable form for execution by the board, and findings of fact and conditions of approval that I think are ready for adoption. And if you go through them to any extent, want to make changes or updates, we can note those as we go.
So just to underscore what Jamie's saying a bit, this comes out of us attending a Maine Municipal Association meeting, workshop, where we realized that we weren't recording findings of facts. So, and we came back and said, oh, we've been doing it all wrong now, up until now. So Jamie's produced this to help us understand how this process works, right? Yeah. So we can now go through and see if we agree with what you've written here. And you've highlighted the yellow, Jamie, because
one of your conditions of approval is that Jeff's connection to public sewer should be approved by the relevant authorities.
Right.
And it, you know, it's sort of in a phase of negotiations. They've seen Jeff's lab results and talking about what is the demand on the sewer system that this use will create. And when they wrap it up, there'll be a dollar amount, and he'll have an account with the sewer district and pay something per month.
Right.
That part's done in terms of the sort of the first interpretation from the sewer district, and I'm referring to the Camden wastewater treatment plant superintendent. You know, he's come up with a number. He's not said no. He said, yep, and here's what it'll cost you. And what they need to do from now is review how he interpreted the lab results and potentially agree on a lesser charge, or else go with what the wastewater superintendent has asked for. And of course, locally, we have our own process with the wastewater commissioners, where Jeff can apply for an alternative interpretation of the fees that are owed to the two towns.
I got you. So there's one, two, there's three, there's a few waivers on there, right? Three that you're suggesting.
No, those are from last month. You waived those.
Oh, we waived them. All right. We
I
did.
I'm just suggesting that in the future we can number them to keep track.
Okay, I got you. All right. Tom?
With all of this sewer stuff, is that provided to Scott too for his permit with the town to connect?
Yep.
He has you have a permit with the town through Scott Bickford to connect to the sewer?
He's working on it. That's what you could update the planning board on if you like.
So different than the wastewater user application.
Right, but that's going to Scott Bickford,
Yeah,
right?
Scott was left out of the loop a little bit. I filled him in today. He and I met, and
Okay.
we're moving that forward. We'll meet with the sewer commission
Yeah.
Jerry?
availability.
So my question is, can we go ahead and approve this, knowing that pretty much most of the stuff that we are concerned with is done, or in the end will be dealt with by the code
That's-
officer
that's the
as
conditions of approval, yeah.
gatekeeper? In other words, we don't have to
Yeah.
keep having this young man come back and come
No, no,
back
no.
and come back with
No,
more and more
certainly not.
letters.
There we are.
Not at all.
From this point,
Here.
I did.
I invited
read
Jeff
that,
here
but I s-
basically for a party favor, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
we gave him a messy drawing last time, and we can give him a
Right.
professional-looking one,
Yeah.
and lenders and everybody else in the future will be glad to know that the planning board approved this in February,
Yeah.
subject to conditions, and if you like, Jeff can update you on how he's doing
we don't need
fulfilling
that
those
because
conditions.
all
So
this
these are
is a
just sort of an
formality.
update, not anything we have to
Right.
we don't have to babysit this.
What,
Got it.
you want to
Thanks.
update us?
Yep, so the letter came back from Woodward and Kern, and if you read the last paragraph, it basically says we see overall, there shouldn't be any trouble with this.
Yeah,
That's,
it's good.
so it comes down to details and us hashing out exactly
Right.
what the brass tacks is
If it
gonna
were a
be.
restaurant, it would be very familiar and everyone would know what to do. There's a
Right.
range trap and so on, but
Right.
Jeff, can I ask you two questions? One of our conditions of approval had to do with the dumpster. And the only thing that I wanted to point out, my understanding was the enclosure really was intended to disguise the dumpster probably from Route 90. So I'm assuming what you've sketched in there, really, there should be a solid front facing the road, and the access probably should be to the left of the dumpster, correct? You see what I
That's-
mean?
I have it on the pavement, yeah.
So you have it, so we can see the dumpster
Right.
straight on. I don't think that was the intent
Well,
of.
actually, if you
That's a
look-
hinge, that's a hinge.
It's got a hinge.
It's a
gate
hinge
on it,
door.
Ron.
I'm finished.
I'm so,
See, it looks like an enclosure to me. Is that a gate that swings in front of the
Yeah.
dumpster?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
That's
yes,
how
yes.
dumpster
I didn't
enclosures
realize
work.
I left
that.
it open.
Thank you, Jeff.
Sorry, I'll try to
No,
remember
no,
to
no,
leave it
no,
closed.
no, it's my, again, my
that's
newness, but I at least wanted to ask. I had one other question. I thought the memo, and I'm not even sure he was copied on this, Jamie, but the one from Mike Thompson about some of the assumptions being made about cleaning and stuff, was that information passed on to Jeff?
I hope so. It has been a little bit convoluted.
No, that one I think we talked about. Mike is from Woodward, Mike Thompson from Woodward and Kern?
This was Mike Thompson talking
from
about, he's
Woodward Current.
making some assumptions about cleaning products, sanitizers, that kind of thing. I
That's
just
the
thought
one I
this
didn't
was,
see.
okay, I just think those assumptions should be passed on to Jeff, so,
By all means, and the sewer ordinance is something that's very much under the microscope lately, and we're working on a process that involves all the people who need to be, but in the right order. And what you're looking at is recommendations about best management practices or
Right.
other things that might be attached to the sewer connection permit. And you have conditioned your approval on that permit. So this is all, as Jeff says, details for how that permit will come out.
as long as he knows.
Yeah.
Because again, as you say, it's contingent as part of our conditions of approval.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
And so the drawing you're looking at, by the way, Jeff has figured out what application he could scrounge up from the web to edit the PDF that you make on the MapGeo of our MapGeo module on our website. So you're looking at a really interesting way to do it yourself site plan drawing.
That's neat.
And it's
Absolutely.
something
That's
that the
great.
board, I think, has a strong interest in, not driving every applicant to the expense of,
Absolutely.
Survey.
you know,
I have seen applications in my previous stint on the planning board that were almost drawn on a napkin. So-
yeah.
And
this would
met
be
all
great.
of
He
the
did-
application
He
requirements.
did say the previous planning board, he didn't say this one. Okay, what do we need to do? We need to,
It's really to your pleasure. Do you want to sign another drawing and say?
I think that we could make a motion to
Yeah.
accept the findings of fact and then
Yeah.
sign the,
why don't
the
you make
new
it, Tom?
thing and Bob's your uncle.
The MMA term would be adopt the findings of fact and
Well,
conditions of
then
approval.
I shall.
Let's just hear that again. 'cause
make the
this-
motion.
This is really, this is really important because this is going to become part of our process moving forward. So the language,
A motion to adopt the findings of fact and conditions of approval
Right.
presented by staff.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Any public comment? All in favour? Okay. Thank you for helping us through this education process.
Yes.
Yes, so Jeff has been a guinea pig in multiple
Thank
ways.
you.
Coming
Yeah,
back for this meeting.
Mr. Chair, would you like to,
Working
sign?
on
Yeah.
his
And he's
How many
still, and
copies?
he's still smiling.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because he's getting this much closer to having tofu roll off the line.
And now that your business is
Well,
done,
now that he packages it and it's not being plunked in a bucket,
a
yeah.
funny example of where where reasonable people might disagree about the impact on the sewer system. The current calculation from the Camden wastewater treatment plant superintendent includes all the water in the product that leaves the shop.
Oh.
So it's interesting that
Yeah.
there's more than one way to interpret that.
Yeah.
And so they're working on it.
How many copies do you need?
But how many copies would you like?
He can have one.
How
Do you
many
want
do you
one?
need signed?
Yes, I do.
So there's, I got it.
So one for you, one for me?
That'd be plenty.
It's got, we haven't signed it on this end, so it's got to
Great.
come back this way. All right.
There's that one.
When's the grand opening, Jeff?
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be June before we start operations there. So we're set to close Wednesday. We were gonna close on Friday, got pushed back a couple more days to Wednesday next week, and then we'll start renovations. We close on Wednesday, we'll start renovations on Thursday,
Good.
because then I'm paying for two places at once.
It'd be so nice to see some activity happening in that, on
Yeah.
that lot again. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for the space.
Good.
We'll be
Did
down
we
there in
say
the summer.
two? Did we say two? Have we all signed
Choose
them?
plenty. Yep.
We have
So
nothing.
Mr. Chair, if you could make sure that everybody signed both copies and we're good.
Yeah.
Unlike a subdivision, there's no need to
This one's
record
complete.
this drawing. It's
This is
just
complete.
something that we keep on file. A PDF will be the most definitive work product probably that's
Okay.
used.
So here's your copy, and it's all signed, and I'll include the rest of the stuff that's in this packet too, so if you don't have copies, now you do. Yeah, exactly.
I put a signature block on the findings of fact that, Jeff, if you like, you can turn into me later where it says you've read them and you acknowledged them. But again, this is just the planning board working on its process and not your concern. Yep, that's what it is.
Here you go.
Thank you. All right. All right.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, good luck.
Yes, good luck.
much. Okay. Next up is development review from Alexander and Elizabeth Kraus. The applicants have requested board approval for a plan of a private way providing access to a property of approximately 63 acres from the end of Fisk Lane, map 13, lot 15. Oh. Floor is yours.
My name's Lexi Kraus, and I've got two things to distribute. This is simple, but it's a little complicated, so I blew these up.
All right. And is that what we're looking up at on the screen?
As a segue between what the last applicant did for submissions and this one, this drawing needs to get recorded in the Knox County Registry of Deeds.
Okay.
So a do-it-yourself version
Wouldn't help.
wouldn't do.
No.
And yet Lexi has done everything else possible to put the packet together himself, which you'll see as you go through.
This one is a draft. The only difference is the verbiage in the corner.
Okay.
These two are final.
But we won't sign that one.
And these larger things are exactly the same thing as what is in our
Other
packets?
other than the verbiage.
Right,
This was, Jamie and I changed
but
it the
the
last.
meat of it is the
Yes,
same.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So tell us what you want to do. Then we'll see if we can say yes.
Unfortunately, my property is on the other side of Macy Pond.
You know, there is also, I don't know whether you want it, but there's also another flip chart standing there that you can pin it to. But let's see if we can
Okay.
manage.
Or you could just tape it to the TV, right?
I love that. I love the mix of high and low tech. I had the same
This
thought.
is my current house lot. It's lot number 6
Uh-huh.
of the Beach Lane or the Chamberlain subdivision. And just to orient you, here's South Street. This is Beach Hill Road
Yeah.
coming up from Hoboken Gardens.
Yeah.
And the little parking lot for Beach Hill is here.
Yeah.
So we live up Fisk Lane, which is a private road, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 houses here that are not part of the subdivision. And this is the subdivision, which contains 3 houses.
Right.
What I've drawn here, I'll give you a bigger copy in a second. Once you're all oriented, I'm gonna show you a blow-up. So, my second piece of property is this roughly 60-acre parcel, which runs along Route 17 and comes all the way up to the subdivision.
Right.
So, when everybody's ready, I'll show a blow-up. Okay?
And Lexi, when you say the subdivision, you might offer the planning board a little more background there. The house lot where the Krauses live and 6 others are included in an old subdivision, which I attached to the memo just to give you a sense of where the lands are.
Right.
The large parcel that the Krauses have more recently acquired is not included in the subdivision,
Okay.
but he needs access to it.
The large parcel of land was Virginia Sides, the Blueberry Acres farm, and we bought most of that property minus the house and barn and a large lot there. So what I've drawn is, I wish at some time to be able to divide the 60 acres into into 2 pieces. Sell what I've drawn in the purple, and this is a wavy line, because I don't know if, this is a field, and it's all bounded by walls,
Right.
and I don't know if I want to break the field or not, but basically, I would be selling off 2/3 of the property and keeping 1/3 for myself. In doing so, I landlocked the piece of property.
So the idea of the road is so that you don't landlock that.
Right, so I need to be able to, there are 2 easements needed.
Yeah.
I need to have an easement from myself
Yeah.
to myself, but
Will
basically,
you argue with it?
no,
agree?
but.
No, his
but-
attorneys will argue against each other.
That's right, I'm doing this because if down the
Yeah.
road, I may not be the owner of
Owner.
one
Oh,
piece.
right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Um,
yeah.
Down the road, get it? Or-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Right.
So, the snag in this idea is, there is this old lane that goes down, it used to go all the way down to Route 17, that was, there was a judgment in the 90s, and it was declared,
No longer a lane.
Abandoned.
abandoned by disuse or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And it was decided that it could not be used for egress.
Okay.
And so
It's a
I am proposing to cross it, not use it.
Yeah.
So my new, as you can see now,
Yeah.
my new, way to get to this large piece of property is to use this easement, which currently goes all the way down to lots 5 and 4,
Serving the Chamberlain property.
the Chamberlains, and then granting a new easement to the owner of this property, which is me, to cross over.
Yeah. So just because that's being videotaped, you just,
Sure.
because everybody who's not looking on TV can then see that, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Oh, really? Oh, okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, all right.
should I do,
No, you're good. Yeah.
is everybody
Yes.
Yeah, I got it.
following me?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had to widen this was a 40-foot right-of-way. It has to be widened to 50 to meet subdivision standards.
Yeah.
Even though the Chamberlains are combining their lots. So I don't really have to do that, but
Has to do it.
we're doing it. And
It's gonna be good for access for emergency vehicles. It makes it all easier, yeah.
Yeah. And it exists within the boundaries of the subdivision, so
it
it
is
has
there
to
already.
meet,
Right.
right, but so it has
needs
to
widening
meet.
it to 10 feet. Well, that's the easement, but the road only widens
Oh, got it, yeah,
maybe
yeah.
2 or 3 feet.
I wanted to look at that, so this,
There's
So-
the,
So we're
Is the-
talking about converting what exists right now as a right-of-way.
Mhm.
You're talking about converting a portion of that
Right.
into the new status of private right-of-way. In other words, just, you're converting a deeded right-of-way, which now just is basically a long driveway, and you want us to dedicate a portion of that into this new animal that sounds the same but isn't, an accepted private right-of-way.
I'm not sure if it is different. Well, this is currently a right-of-way as part of the subdivision.
That's the bit
Right.
that's banded in blue.
Maybe we should use the word easement. That's currently an
Right,
easement.
it's currently
Right of way
easement.
and easement
The
and
drive-
roads are different things.
That's what I was trying to
So-
say. So you want us to take a portion of an existing easement
Correct.
and dedicate it into a private right-of-way.
Private
That's what I meant to say
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
I misspoke. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
And to do it, owner of lot 6 has to grant
Right.
this easement to be expanded
Right,
Right.
going to the chamber.
and that's been granted.
And it's been
You
done.
have an agreement for that.
I have a maintenance agreement, which I had
Alright.
it drafted, and it's actually,
I've seen it.
It's
in-
all
in
done.
the package,
Yep.
Yeah.
and as well, an easement to use this as egress to this lot.
Does anybody, this is what I'm thinking, is that we can deal with any questions that the board has, but I'm thinking that we should then consider the package as complete and then vote to approve. Does anybody have any problem with that process?
No.
Okay,
So, to make a finding that you have a complete application,
yes.
you will apply the provisions of section 805.3 of the land use ordinance.
Thank you.
Got it.
Is that
Open
written
right
down
here.
here somewhere?
It's right here if you want to put it in front of you, John.
Thanks.
And then I put
Another
back
place
over
it's
to the
written-
revisions.
Okay, so, so this we should record as a finding of fact, right?
Yes.
That,
My points that I answered.
that,
Yes.
that we find the package is complete and meets the requirements of 805.3 private way.
Correct. And that's the change that Lexi alluded to in the notes on the drawing.
Right.
I asked Mark Ingraham to take out a reference to state subdivision law and put in 805.3.
And that's it.
And before we wrap up, I want to make sure the planning board is aware that this relates to subdivision approvals, past and future.
Right. Everybody got that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But
And I-
805.3 is the
And I do
work
have a
of
question
the night.
about that after we finish with that.
Right, good, thank you. So that's our finding of fact, right? Which we have now properly recorded.
Well, you haven't found it yet. You need to find that fact now.
So then we need a motion.
You can't do it without actually applying the provisions. So what you might do is, if not read them all, I understand. I mean, you're totally in order making requesting a motion to do this. But what the reason for findings of fact that you'll later adopt is so that if someone challenges the decision, they know that the planning board actually made the findings.
Right.
And so here's your chance, as thoroughly or as in a cursory manner, whatever you like.
Yeah, okay. So, do we have to make a motion first to state that these are finding of fact?
No.
First we say these are a finding of fact, right?
You don't have to.
then I'm getting confused with the process
Okay.
that's required of us.
It sounds like it's time for a flow chart and a sample motion.
It really does, yeah. So, first of all, we have to state that a finding of fact, right? And that fact is that the application is complete and that it meets the requirements of 805.3 private ways.
Very good.
Yes.
What you don't have is a checklist for this.
I mean,
We enjoyed that checklist in the last application,
no,
but
and I think that we don't need it
that's great.
in this case, right?
If you have any questions on any of these subparagraphs and how we worked them through, that's great too. I'm available.
Right. I mean,
Chair,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, do we need to go through these points though? Because are there going to be certain provisions or requirements that we're gonna have to waive or that we deem are not appropriate or whatever? I mean, I'm wondering if we do need to go through it one by one.
you're suggesting we should.
No, he's asking you if you think we should.
I feel as if we should.
Would you like to?
I am happy to chime in if you want to take us through the.
Okay, all right then. Okay, all right. So I was trying to short circuit that, but we're not going to.
I'd feel more comfortable if we went through the points.
Okay, point one, the plan shows a private way is prepared and registered by a land surveyor,
It
etc.
is.
Okay, the roads are designed so as not to be subject to seasonal flooding or washout and disturb wetlands, etc., etc. Okay, the plan shall bear notes that
Is that been satisfied?
A street plan, cross-section and drainage.
a street plan, cross-section and drainage plan shall be submitted for each private way serving 2 or more lots.
And you don't have that.
So that's a waive, right?
Which
Right.
don't we have?
In number 2, I don't believe that you're working on a section drawing.
Roads, drainage ditches and culverts shall be provided wherever appropriate. A street plan, cross-section and drainage plan shall be submitted for each
There it
private way
is.
serving 2 or
So
more
you say
lots.
you have done
There are
that?
some cross sections right here.
Cross-sections.
Oh, there are?
Cross-
Okay.
So there
Yeah,
are, yeah.
cross sections provided.
And the
Yeah.
topos are here.
Yep.
And this is virtually the top of a very gentle hill,
Yeah.
which has natural drainage, and it didn't seem to be an issue at all.
Okay. The plan should bear notes that the town of Rockport will not be responsible for the maintenance, repair, plowing of private way, etc. Does it?
In the bottom right, there are some notes.
Yep.
Well, it provides,
Okay.
this
Yeah,
is a
bottom
recorded
right, bottom
maintenance
right, down
agreement.
here.
Yes.
So,
Oh, right
okay,
there. There you go.
if the private way is providing access to 2 or more lots, a maintenance agreement shall be required by the planning board and recorded in the Knox County Register of Deeds. There is a maintenance
It's right
agreement.
there.
The construction of private ways shall comply with the following minimum standards. Does anybody see that the number of units or lots to be served, that chart, does it not meet any of those as far as you can see?
It's going
I
to
read it
50,
earlier and it complies.
it's going to
Okay.
50 feet, isn't it?
Yes.
All right?
It's going to 50 feet, not 40.
right.
Anyways,
Is it okay?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Turnout to provide space for 2 vehicles to pass be provided for every 500 feet of the private way.
Do we have 500 feet here?
1 turnout to provide space for 2 vehicles to pass provided for every 500 feet of the private way.
So it's only 300 feet, Lexi?
It's roughly from here
Right.
to,
Just off the edge of the screen.
yeah,
Yeah.
here is 330 feet.
Right.
Right.
And this leads into a field,
Right.
which would be a turnout
Right.
out, and this is a turnout here.
That's your
Okay.
driveway.
That's
This
my
is
driveway.
probably
You've
NA.
got the circle
Not
at the end of
applicable.
that 300 feet, so
applicable.
you're set.
Okay, visibility, the driveway should not cause a hazard to pedestrians or vehicular traffic, etc. That's item 7. Item 8, not more than 1 driveway to be allowed over a given front lot to serve back lots. Any waiver requires planning board approval. Approval of the code enforcement officer for private ways serving 1 lot.
That does not apply because it's
Doesn't
more than one
apply.
lot.
Plan
That's why
of
it's
deed,
here.
right, plan or deed description of private ways shall be recorded in the Knox County Register of Deeds, which it will be. Any changes such as the creation of another lot shall require prior approval by the planning board under this subsection. and the private ways approved by the code officer of planning board must be constructed and utilised at the time the lot is developed.
John, excuse me, you went quickly through 7 and 8. Are they waived? Are they not applicable? Have they been met?
Why is your laws different to mine?
7 is a finding that you should be prepared to make,
Yeah.
and 8 is not applicable because there are no back lots. Nobody's crossing over property of another to get to their
Okay.
lot.
Okay, so then we find that the driveway, a finding of fact is that the driveway does not cause a hazard to pedestrians or vehicular traffic.
Right. And so now you have this question of style. Having been through all this, you could have made a motion at each one and called each one a finding of fact.
Yes.
But since you've been through the body of them,
Right.
it seems appropriate to make a finding of fact that, as you started out saying, the requirements of section 805.3 private ways have been satisfied by the application.
I did already make that statement.
You did, yes. If only the chair could make motions.
But hold on, hold on a
Have
second.
been reviewed.
So, Deborah, did you have that?
Well, what I wrote down, that you said was, it is a finding of fact that the application is complete and meets the requirements of 805.3 private way.
Right.
Right, so,
It is a finding of
Right.
fact rather than,
Right.
is
right.
that how you want it? But
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
And we'll make a motion in a minute. Terry has a question, and Tom, I think.
Well, I felt the need to point something out. I don't think it will make a difference, but John was reading aloud from this portion of the ordinance that's dated June 9th, 2015. However, in our packet, we were given the pages from the 2014 ordinance.
Is it
Which
materially
is
any
probably, I don't believe so,
not-
but,
it's not
but I
different.
wanted to explain that may be why you said, why does yours look different?
All right, okay.
It's because it's a different year, and I think that's all it needs to be said, but just to make it clear, he's reading aloud from the ordinance, the current ordinance, and what's in our packet, he's not reading aloud
Right.
from.
Okay, but materially, it doesn't make any
Should there
difference.
be any difference, it
Okay.
doesn't matter, but.
Okay.
Figure out what you're reading.
Okay, so then, now we need a motion to approve.
This was in our packet.
Yes, and I have suggestions for a condition of approval that I put in your memorandum.
we have.
But if you like, you can stop here and make a finding of fact about private ways and save a
Just-
motion to approve.
Hang on a second.
second
Just draw our
action.
attention to it. Hold on, Terry. I dropped my papers actually coming in, and they got mixed up.
Well,
I have to admit, so I
the
need
reason
some-
I thought it
You
was
can
worth
use
a
mine.
memorandum
Will
is
somebody
that
show me that? Okay, all right. Thank you.
the reason I troubled you to read a memo, and I worked harder than it seems to keep them short, the fact of the existing subdivision should trigger something in the minds of experienced and prospective members alike, because the subdivision is being amended on
Yes,
its
that
face.
was why I had my hand up, that we can't approve this until we now look at it through the subdivision lens briefly, but that's a second step we have to look at.
Well, yes, and I thought you were, by calling out a findings of fact as its own motion,
Yeah.
which I salute, you could do that first and then work on approval later. So if
Yeah.
you want to finish with 805 now, I suggest you make a finding with respect to those requirements. But before approving this application for a plan of a private way, we need to discuss the subdivision angle.
Yep.
Makes sense.
So when are we gonna do that?
How about now?
How about now?
I guess, okay, John's reading. Lexi, thanks for your patience while we hone our process.
Okay.
So you are in a position to make a finding on 805. You're not in a position to approve this because you
Right.
haven't considered what conditions of approval are
So
necessary.
now we've got to, now we have to look at the subdivision.
No, you can just flip right over, I've already got it tagged, because I read it earlier.
No, we've got it.
Strangely, no. But we'll get there, don't worry.
Oh, here we are. Ah.
But then it directs you to 6.
What I've proposed is a much lighter touch than review of the subdivision ordinance, but rather approving the right-of-way conditioned upon a future amendment to the subdivision. And the reasons that this might be satisfactory to the planning board is that totally beyond the influence of the Krauses, two other lot owners
That's exactly.
are holding up the preparation of an amended plan. The ancient drawing that I attached to your memo shows lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think. Lots 1, 2, and 3 have recently been acquired by the town of Rockport and added to a cemetery. And lot 4, I believe it is, or lot 5, owned by the Chamberlains.
4 and 5.
They own both 4 and 5, and their plan is to get rid of the lot line in between. So, in view of the time and expense that the amended subdivision plans require, and for the sake of title searchers in the future, I suggest that we record only one amended plan later this year that has all 3 amendments in it. And so your decision on the mechanics of this approval and the condition, I think, breaks down this way. The planning board is in a position to approve the private way plan conditioned upon future approval of an amended subdivision plan.
Right.
And then you could ask yourself, well, should the applicant go and record this drawing now, or should they wait? Things like that come to mind, but you don't, I don't think, have the burden of going through the subdivision ordinance now,
Right.
because there is no amendment to a
Right.
subdivision plan proposed.
Right. But, however, I have a question, which again, it would have been helpful in all cases if we always get a copy of the tax map, because that gives us context, which we don't, which you provided in this great thing that you gave us, which is great, but I printed one out. Isn't it true, however, that the parcels served by this, is Fisk Lane is a town road, or is?
Private road.
It's a private road, and isn't it part of the subdivision?
It was,
Or the subdivision is served by a right-of-way over Fisk Lane, easement?
It was improved when the subdivision was formed.
Right,
There was a road there, the old Beach Lane, which went all the way down to 17.
right,
Where are you
right,
going with this,
right.
Terry?
So where I'm going with this is not to interrupt you,
Right.
is that we've talked about you, and you're right
Right,
here,
right.
and we've talked about the Chamberlains, who are beyond you and served by this easement. But there is, in fact, another property before you, and so right here, this
Oh.
wedge-shaped,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
That is also served by Fisk Lane. So my only concern is, and I think it will be handily dealt with in that second phase that Jamie's talking about, but I'd like to raise it as an issue and have us know whether it will be an issue or not. If you are providing, right now there's easement over your property to serve these other 2 Chamberlain properties.
Right.
You want to create a way to provide access over that as well, to this other parcel that's not part of the
Where
subdivision.
are we going?
And
Can we get there? Yeah, I'm getting impatient because.
because you're not understanding
Well,
the
no,
issue.
because I need you to get to the
The next
issue.
sentence will
Then let's
reveal.
get there.
So the issue is, doesn't he need also the approval of not just the Chamberlains, but this other parcel that is served by Fisk Lane? In other words, adding one more parcel adds, again, not like 5 parcels worth of traffic, but it adds another impact. Up over Fisk Lane is now serving yet another parcel that's not part of the subdivision. And I'm just wondering if this abutter has also been notified or needs to be notified or needs to be involved when we go through that subdivision amendment.
Well-
Because it actually does affect.
I have a letter that all 3 subdivision owners have signed.
Okay, but I don't have that in my packet. I've got the,
That's why we have submission requirements, so that we have all this in advance.
yeah,
So
and
we
again,
have all these questions
I'm not so
answered.
much trying to put a roadblock up, I'm just trying to raise an issue that if it isn't solved tonight, and it probably doesn't have to be, because right now we're just saying it meets the right-of-way stuff, right?
Right.
But in the end, if it comes into the amended, it is in fact an amendment to an existing subdivision because it's allowing a third-party easement over an existing subdivision road. And we've got the apparently written permission of the Chamberlains and you,
Right.
obviously. But do we not also need and the answer may be no. I'm raising it more for Jamie. Don't we need the involvement of these other parcels that are also served by
So
Fisk
your
Lane?
question is, your point, Terry, is that we need a letter from the owners of the other parcel saying that they agree.
I don't know what we need. I'm asking Jamie.
Perhaps we should address
I'm
this.
raising it as a question.
You
That's
will
all.
need it. You can't approve an amended subdivision plan
hold on.
without
If you
it.
Listen to it.
And it's already in the can because Lexi's done all that work ahead of
I-
time.
I have
Right.
the letter signed by the 3 subdivision owners, which Jamie has the original
Okay,
signed.
but
Right.
we just don't have that.
I'm keeping it
You
for
got
a
it.
more perfect subdivision
that's
amendment
Perfect.
later
That's
on.
all I want to know.
And
I'm
I
satisfied.
will add that when these other houses have been built along our lane, their egress didn't require anything of the subdivision owners.
No, they don't, but you understand what I'm saying. It means that there is now going to be a user
Right.
of these roads that impact and/or are owned by others in the subdivision than just you and the
Right.
Chamberlains.
Right.
And I just want to make sure that
Okay.
that was being included. We don't have to do it tonight, but I wanted to make sure it was kind of on the blackboard, as it were.
So we've answered
Because
that
it's
question.
important.
We've answered the question, so now we need a motion to approve, is this right? Article 9?
Well,
No,
you
we're
showed
not doing a revision to our subdivision plan. You just said that.
Do you mind, just hold on, Jamie?
I suggest that you finish with 805.3,
Right.
find that the application is complete and meets all of the requirements of that section.
Right.
I thought we did.
Next, consider approval of the application, two-parter, because you want to do findings of fact separately. And that's up to the style of the board, in my opinion. But you wanted to do two things, so findings of fact on 805.3, then approval of a plan of a private way should be including this condition.
Right.
And you're not in a position to apply Article 9 or any part of the subdivision ordinance, because some of the stuff that Lexi has faithfully done in advance is only applicable when you get that
So
subdivision.
the first thing
Right.
we want then,
Application.
so the first thing that we want then is a motion to approve the plan of a private way conditioned upon upon the future approval of the amended subdivision.
No, we,
Yeah.
The finding of fact
yeah,
first.
we have to redo it. We
Come on,
reviewed
no, no.
80,
That.
You know, this is just administration here. We know we want to do it, what we want to do. Let's just make sure we get it right.
You could even make a finding, you could even wait until next month to adopt the findings of fact, as you've done with Heiwa Tofu. So it's whichever you prefer.
That would be
Well, I
cleaner.
prefer
Then
to
we
do,
have a,
John?
then everybody
do-
grasped what was going on.
prefer to do what we started.
Very good.
Okay, so step 1 is,
John?
yeah,
You could make a motion that the planning board has reviewed section 803.5 or 805.3
Yep.
and finds that, a finding of fact that the applicant meets all of the requirements of that section.
right. Which
Second.
is,
Second, I thought we
okay,
did
which is
that.
what
No, we didn't.
No, we
Okay,
did.
No, we said it before, but we never made.
But
He
I-
made a
but I-
statement, but we didn't make a motion and we
Okay,
haven't
so the
voted.
motion,
And
the
and the
motion
chair,
has,
the chair doesn't make the motion anyway, but
Right.
I added in there that the planning board has reviewed
Right.
and finds.
Right.
so do we have that?
Do you want to, do we have to use the word adopted in findings of fact?
I suggest it when there's an actual work product,
Okay,
there's not a word
Okay.
product.
okay.
So we have a
there's work
motion,
product.
we have a
separate
motion,
from the record.
we have a motion, it's been seconded, correct? Okay. Is
We
there
just
any-
had the discussion.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay,
Terrific.
step 1. Step 2,
I recommend approval conditioned upon this other thing, but it's very unusual to go and let someone make a change to a subdivision drawing, and I want to call your attention to it. And John, I know you'll enjoy this. I've got the tax map on the screen now, and if there was any doubts about which lot is which, Lexi could point that out. The am I in the right spot? 1513?
No, no.
Is it map 13,
You
lot
want this
15?
copy of the text map?
Map 13,
Well, to
lot
share it with the audience at home, I'll need to
Map
get it on
13,
screen.
lot 55.
55.
That's
55?
why we need
13,
copies of the-
55,
Okay,
lot
15
55.
must be your house lot. And here goes. Oops, not that one. 5.
Technically, what's the next thing we need to do so that we
I'd
can
make
bring
a-
this to a close?
I make a motion
Approve the private, plan of a private way,
that,
conditioned upon.
subject to final
Subject to-
approval of the
Amended-
amended subdivision
Will somebody
approval.
make the motion?
I just
Second.
did. I just did.
Made. What's the matter?
Okay, wait, let,
Fin-
if you
final-
could repeat it, because it wasn't.
Final approval,
I'm sorry.
I'm making a motion, the final approval of this change will be subject to
There we are.
final acceptance and approval of the future subdivision to be proposed.
Second.
Amended.
Amended subdivision to be
Right.
approved.
Okay.
The amended subdivision approval.
We're going to miss you, Tony. That's going to be your job.
Um,
Okay, Deb,
I guess that must be.
do you want to read it back to make sure?
yes. 'cause
Go on,
it's
go,
not
go
right.
ahead, yeah.
It-
We don't mean to make your job harder.
It just says, final approval of this change will be subject to final acceptance and approval of the amended subdivision. It isn't really a motion.
So that is a, I make a motion
I
that.
move that.
Move that, and then, what change? There's no definition of what change you,
Right, the
It's
amended
the,
right, the right of way,
Plan of a private way,
private way.
Approving the proposed plan of the private.
it says, the final, I move that the final
Plan-
approval of this change will be subject. Do you want to define the change?
The proposed private way.
Thank you.
thank you.
Proposed private way. I think I
Yeah,
got
the
it,
language.
thank you.
Right there.
And perhaps I could do more with my memo to call out the sentence that it is a recommended motion, more or less.
Okay,
Hold it.
we have the motion? Is it seconded?
It has been.
Yes, yeah.
Is there any further discussion?
Any more wordsmithing?
Anybody dare to want to say anything more about this? All in favour? Okay, thank you. Sorry to be so long-winded about it.
Hey, but at least we do it so it doesn't come back on anybody.
Okay, good, thank you.
Well, it shows that we reviewed it, like you wanted to do, and then
did.
it's
Yep.
subject to approval
did.
of something else.
And I appreciate
You're
it.
interested.
And we did a
I'll explain
review
to
of
you
our
what
review.
at
It was
stake
all
here
very
and what
meta.
bullet we just missed.
I suggest that the
really
planning
important.
board is in a position to
I don't
sign
think so.
those
Oh,
I
now.
think you've been
Absolutely.
totally
And what
misbehaving.
Because
we
he's-
could decide
He's totally
on a staff
giving
level, should they be reported?
access over
I
there
have
that
to
he
drive-
doesn't
I
have a
have to
right
Well, we
to do.
can, we can
Didn't
make
have
our,
the
Just
right
sign
to
it.
do
and
that.
sign it.
Get them
How many
done.
copies you want? One for you? or
Okay,
one for me?
One
Gotta sign
Mylar
it
for
tonight.
each,
I have
one
to
Mylar
leave.
for me.
I have to leave. I'm going to,
Mr. Chairman? We need signatures before you bail?
I'm going to sign the signatures. Everything else on this agenda can wait. We're going to sign motion to adjourn.
Well, the last thing can't wait. The last thing on the agenda.
Oh,
I'm sorry, we don't
accepting
ex-
Tony's
we don't accept-
resignation.
We don't accept it.
Just rejected it.
Okay.
All in
All right,
favor?
okay, I'm going to skip the planning board ordinance and bylaws. I'm going to skip reviewing the minutes of the last meeting. I just want to
The only way you get stuff out is tear it over.
we need a motion to, I guess, to accept the resignation of planning board member Tony Bates.
So moved.
It was with regret you accepted.
Yes.
We'll miss you, Tony. Thank you so much for.
And somebody will have to say the motion to adjourn,
Wait for it.
always in
Wait
order.
for it. Wait for it.
Because
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn,
Is always in order, so move.
and it's not debatable.
That's right. And make sure it says that when we get, because it doesn't say that in these.
Tony, I missed this.
You can't
Are
say
we,
yes.
are we signing